This presentation will help you complete essay number 3. This essay is worth 300 points, which is almost 1/3 of the grade, so it's very important that you follow the instructions carefully and ask questions if you need to. The length remains between 2 and 4 pages. The grade is up to 300 points. It's the usual rule about no late rough drafts. Never any exceptions to that rule, because you need to work on this assignment 2 full weeks. This time around, if you would submit the final version on Monday, you would lose 60 points. So again, the maximum grade, assuming everything is perfect, would only be a B-. You want to meet your deadlines. Now, we are arguing for or against one of the following topics. There's 12 to choose from, and you can only choose from this list. If you give me any other essay, I will simply return it and say that I believe you submitted the wrong assignment, perhaps for a different class. So look at this list carefully. I won't read through the options, but think carefully. You can see this on the written assignment sheet. They're all listed there as well. The same first 4 lines, the same rule about setting up the document for double spacing, and then writing these 4 lines exactly as you see them. These guidelines are consistent with the MLA and APA requirements used in advanced courses. That's why they're so important. And the usual formatting, this is your 3rd essay. It's the, you're working on the 5th and 6th week of class, so I don't need to go through everything, but remember, don't use Calibri 11 and change the default for the before and after paragraph settings to 0. Those are the most common errors. Creating the structure. You begin with a compelling introduction to set up the 2 opposing viewpoints. Now, you could use the anecdote, that brief little story. Maybe a parent is arguing with a child about whether year-round schooling would be good or not, or maybe 2 colleagues are arguing. And this is, you can use multiple techniques. This is a good one. The scholarly direct quote from an expert in education. That would be very good, or a child psychologist, possibly a related field. An intriguing question or a couple of questions, or a startling statement, an amazing statistic, which would have to be in a direct quote, of course. Those are all ways to capture the attention and set up the assignment. You have to present both sides of the argument in the body. If you only present one side, you are writing the persuasive essay, which is much easier. It's always easier to just ignore the fact that there's 2 logical sides to this argument. If you don't see the 2 logical sides, then choose a different topic. Decide where to position the opposing viewpoint. The first paragraph after the introduction, in the body, or before the conclusion. My personal preference is either to place it in the body, if the points match up exactly so that it's a good structure for the outline, and that's not usually the case. So my personal preference is immediately after the introduction, because if you write it before the conclusion, then when the reader is thinking about which viewpoint you prefer, the opposing viewpoint is in that reader's mind. So it's not quite as logical to me to put it right before the conclusion, although other people feel that that's the best position. So work very hard on the outline and see where this fits for you. Remember, if it goes in the body, then you have points that match up, okay? By that, I mean if you are writing that there should be music and art instead of vocational or core classes, those points would have to match up perfectly. And that's usually not the case. End with your recommendation, which may be a compromise between the two opposing viewpoints. So that takes us over to the conclusion, and you can use those recommendations or compromises, the negative effects, create a circular effect with the introduction, but you're always emphasizing the significant point, your claim. And choose your words carefully. Remember, you lose a lot of points for writing with I, me, you, your, us, those informal words that mean you're talking to the reader in an informal conversation, and you're writing about how you feel about the topic rather than the topic. So get those words out when you proofread. Be concise, use correct grammar and spelling, proofread to eliminate typographical errors, and never use inflammatory language or exclamation points. You have to write about this topic in a very objective, formal manner. You have to present both sides of the argument in the body of the paper. So remember, do not make this a one-sided persuasive essay rather than the more difficult and challenging assignment, the argumentative essay, when you present both sides in a very formal, fair, and impartial manner. I've talked a lot about plagiarism in the other parts of the class, including in the PowerPoint YouTube presentations for Essay 1 and 2. I won't repeat it except to say this time around there's 300 points. If you get a 0 for plagiarizing, you will fail the class. I'm almost positive, because you're down to only earning 70% of the grade. 300 points goes away for the plagiarism. And usually when students plagiarize, they've also had problems in other areas, and that leads to failure in the course, having to repeat it. So write your own work. And final reminders, no unnecessary repetition, stay within the range of 2 to 4 pages, and don't plagiarize. Of course, if you have questions, you're going to ask me. This is especially important with the final assignment. This is the best evidence of your writing skill, so you want to spend a lot of time on it. And if you have questions, you'll call or write or post or do all three, and I'll be happy to help you. Good luck with your third essay.